No, I didn't leave early. We stayed through the whole. My kids they learn more about football in that game than they did their entire lives. That was just fantastic. Yeah, it was just so great. It was a lot of people had gone. Unfortunately, my wife, I listen to my wife. She tells me what to do, and then I do it. It was just such an incredible ending, wasn't it? I mean, it just lifted the whole state, which is great. So.
Well, speaking of endings, what is the issue 2 campaign have to do here in the last week or so to push?
Just keep out pushing, telling people what the facts are behind it, and we'll see what happens.
Do they need to be pumped up?
Oh, I think people are getting it. It's just, again, this is a campaign of emotion against facts, and that makes it hard. It's a hard thing to talk about. You got to control your costs, and fairness is an issue. But at the end of the day, it really is about do we have an environment where jobs can be created? Because if, in fact, we can't control our costs, and we end up in some fiscal emergency like we're seeing in Mansfield, or like we're seeing, the town of Harrisburg in Pennsylvania, the capital, going bankrupt. If you can't control your costs, at some point you have to deal with the consequences. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. We just have to tell people what we're about. It's not some attack on unions or anything else, and there is an element of fairness. Some people shouldn't escape having to step up to the plate like the rest of Ohioans have done. That's all.
When you're talking about such an emotional issue, do you think that in the minds of a lot of people, their minds have already been made up no matter what you say in the final week?
Oh, sure. There's some people that, they have their minds made up, and, it's just the way it is. I don't really kind of worry about all those kinds of things. You just put your best stuff out there, and you see what happens. One really good thing that I will tell you is that as a result of a lot of the hubbub around this issue, we were able to pass our budget with a minimal amount of problems, which is fantastic because it is that budget that has set the framework for the state of Ohio to rebuild. The problem is that if we control our costs and local communities keep raising them, it makes it difficult. And I'm just asking for some numbers to see how local taxes are figuring in to creating perhaps an impression across the country that Ohio is not as friendly for business as we would like. I don't have those numbers, but we're going to dig them out.
And you mentioned the situation with the Lancaster Fire Department. Is that kind of an end result of the issue to not be?
Well, it's just a matter of what you can afford, and for local officials to make hard decisions about how to control their costs. Some people will try to say, well, the state cut it back. In this calendar year, I don't think much impact from the local government fund on that. I think you need to check. Do they have pension pickup? Do they have a health care pickup? And if they do, then, they're having a hard time controlling their costs. As a local government person, it's just really a lot easier not to control costs, to just keep asking the taxpayers for more money. That's what the state of Ohio had been doing for I don't even know how long, and look where it got us. It got us in a position of where we're getting clobbered in terms of employment. And when you lose employment, you lose revenue. When you lose that, you go in the hole. And that's why Ohio had an $8 billion hole. So anyway, it all kind of gets down to basics, and we'll just keep pushing. Regardless of what happens on Tuesday, we'll continue to work with people to try to figure out how to make it easier for them to control their costs. But there won't be any bailouts. We don't have any money to go around bailing people out. It just won't work that way. So we'll see if there's other ideas they might have if we don't win, but let's see what happens.
Governor, building off something you just said, had it not been for issue 2, what kind of problems do you think you would have had with the budget?
Oh, I don't know. I can't say that, but I know a lot of the focus wasn't on that, and the reforms in this budget were the most dramatic reforms that Ohioans had seen in probably 100 years. So, probably people's focus was somewhere else, and who knows what they tried to oppose Jobs Ohio, they tried to oppose controlling costs inside the state, but I think there's only so much energy to go around. The good news is on issue 2, it doesn't disrupt our budget at all, because state employees that patrol all those people. They currently pay this money. So it's not a disruptor. But the troubling thing is it can be a disruptor to local communities if they can't control their costs. And every time you put a levy on the ballot and you pass it, you drive up the cost of doing business. And I understand sometimes they're necessary, but it can't be an immediate reaction until you get your costs under control. Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you.